Now, on gun control, in reality, the White House has already now identified 19 executive actions for President Barack Obama to move unilaterally on gun control. They include, but are not limited to, requiring criminal and mental health background checks on every gun buyer, including sales from individuals, a ban on military-style assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines, a strong statute prohibiting gun trafficking. Maybe we can get our DOJ to follow that one. And I love this one, to the hobbling of the federal agency that enforces the gun laws. That would be the ATF. Can somebody tell me how the ATF is at all hobbled? Yesterday, Obama endorsed some of these steps. Here he is.
What you can count on is that the things that I've said in the past, the belief that we have to have stronger background checks, that we can do a much better job in terms of keeping these magazine clips with high capacity out of the hands of folks who shouldn't have them, an assault weapons ban that is meaningful, that those are things I continue to believe make sense.
He wants to stop the the number of bullets in the magazines and keep them from people who shouldn't have them. Who shouldn't have them? Late last night in New York State, the Senate there passed legislation that will make New York the nation's toughest state on gun laws. I can't tell you how happy I am to be away from that crazy state. The bill expands the state's existing ban on assault weapons. It limits the size of ammunition magazines. It closes a series of loopholes and creates safeguards to make it more difficult for the mentally ill to own firearms. Now, what this means is that mental health officials now, if you go to a psychiatrist, they will have to report to the federal government if you are likely to harm yourself or others. So does that include depression? Because that's likely to harm you. If you're taking Prozac, if you are receiving any kind of mental health treatment, your doctor now has to report to the government. The law enforcement will then be authorized to come to your house and confiscate any firearm. Now, this at the very least compromises patient confidentiality, and the law would infringe on the rights of gun owners, not only if you're the patient, but if you have somebody who is living with you who is deemed mentally ill. So if you're going and you are getting treated, now, because remember, what they're talking about now in New York is they're talking about actually going in and looking at the internet for future crimes to see if your son or daughter in high school is saying anything violent online. Future crimes. But if your daughter or son is saying anything violent online and they're going through depression, oh my gosh, we should lock them up right away. If your son or daughter is going through depression, would you go to the doctor and say, I think my kid is depressed? Now, I would. But if the doctor is now required by law and the kid is prescribed Prozac, now my guns are being taken away? What happens if you're living with somebody mentally ill? Yes, you now have to turn your guns into the government. Are you going to live with somebody who's mentally ill? Are you going to bring your teenager in? You may disregard warning signs or wait until it's too late because you don't want the government to take the guns from you. You don't want your doctor to be a paid snitch. What if your parent had dementia and they just can't live on their own anymore, and they have Alzheimer's? Now you can send them to a nursing home. You can build a pod in your backyard. But what if you can't afford those options or you don't like those options? You want mom or dad to move in so you can care for them. You'll lose your guns. Do you still let mom move in? You see, people will begin to make choices on health based on what they tell and don't tell their doctor, because what the doctor has to tell or not tell the federal government. The moral and ethical consequences of just this one part of the executive orders is staggering. And we're not going to actually have that conversation. These are not black and white. What do these policies do to us as families, as parents, as children, as adults, as communities? What does this do to my relationship with my doctor? Do you trust your doctor anymore, or is he now a doctor/policeman? If you think this stuff is crazy, well, then you're lost. Your friends are lost. People said it was crazy when you said, oh, well, no, assisted suicide will lead to other things. It's a slippery slope. Let me just show you what just happened to twins in Belgium. Remember, euthanasia is just for those who are terminally ill and in extreme pain. Well, these guys are neither, okay? The government assisted in them taking their lives. The government came in and helped them kill them. Why? Because they're deaf and they were going blind and they didn't like that. Oh, so we can just kill them? This happened in Brussels. You know, it's amazing. This is not too far from the place where we had camps where they were doing experiments on twins. When I heard that 2 twins were the first to have voluntary assisted suicide because they didn't like the idea that they were going to be blind, I thought to myself, how appropriate. We're back with twins again, just like we were in the 1930s. If Satan was a card player, you just saw his tell. The left is seizing every single opportunity to diminish us as people, to diminish our relationships with people, and specifically tonight, diminishing our rights, the Second Amendment. This is not, make no mistake, about preventing mass murders. This is about eliminating your right to bear arms. This administration will never waste a good emergency. What they need now is you. They are going to do everything they can to poke and prod, just like they did the first term. They need you to be the violent aggressor because their violent aggressors of Occupy Wall Street didn't do well. They need to turn you into Occupy Wall Street. And if you fail them this time, well, they will go back to Occupy Wall Street. But believe me, they're going to paint the Tea Party again. Those who believe in the Constitution, those who own a gun or believe in the right to bear arms, you are a violent, violent person. They've done it before.
Tea parties, birthers, patriot groups, militias. Their common cause, a raging hostility toward the elected government of the United States.
My fear is that the Tea Party gets a charismatic leader because all they're selling is fear and anger.
Right.
And that's all Hitler sold.
You know, we see these hate groups rising up, and this is definitely part of that. I'm not going to be surprised if we see somebody get a chance and take a chance and really try to hurt him.
There is a Jim Holmes of Aurora, Colorado page on the Colorado Tea Party site as well, talking about him joining the Tea Party last year. Now, we don't know if this is the same Jim Holmes, but it's Jim Holmes of Aurora, Colorado.
All of those things were wrong. All of these things were wrong. All of them. He went on and says, you know, look at this. They're shooting politicians. All of them were wrong. This particular case, she was shot by a leftist. Okay. The media immediately glossed over that. This idea there, I'm afraid, my fear is they're going to turn into Hitler. They're just selling fear. Wait a minute. But you just said it was your fear. All they're doing is fear. Now they're using fear. Here's what's going to happen. If you don't do exactly what we say, if you don't give up another right, it'll mean that your children will be shot. And they need you to rise up. How many amendments can they violate before you care? They're poking you and poking you. They violated the First Amendment. They're violating the Second Amendment. They've violated the 10th Amendment, the 5th Amendment. How many? How many does it take? They're finding out. The left needs you to react and take to the streets. It's a trap. Now, you will take to the streets on this Saturday. Well, maybe not you, but a lot of people that think like you will. It's Gun Appreciation Day. What a ridiculous thing. What is that, Hallmark? Gun Appreciation Day. Gun owners and Tea Party activists across the country are being called to go out to your local gun store, your gun range, or your gun show with your Constitution, American flags, and send a loud and clear message to Congress and President Obama. No one is going to get that. No one. This is the dumbest idea I have ever heard. This is going to make you look like a crazy constitutional kook with a flag waving and everything else. It's going to do it again. That's how they're going to present it. It's not going to impress Congress at all. They don't care, and certainly the president doesn't care. I mean, why can't we get that? I sat there and I thought to myself this morning in the morning meeting, if I were on the left, how would I do this? If I were going to use the tactics of the left, what would I do? Well, I wouldn't go out with the Constitution. I wouldn't go out with a flag. What I would do is I would print up a bunch of posters of children, cute little children who died from gunshots because an adult wasn't allowed to exercise their right and have a gun protect them. Just posters with faces and the words, "Could have been saved if someone had a gun." That's what I'd do if I were on the left. Now, I immediately dismissed this idea and didn't bring it up to the radio audience because it's unscrupulous. It's wrong to use children to sell your point. In a completely unrelated idea, the president will be surrounded by children tomorrow at 11:45, according to the White House, when he pulls out these executive orders. May I suggest that you don't march in the street, that you sit down with your family and you discuss. What do these things actually mean to us as a family? And if we have to turn in our guns, if we have to do these things, what do we do? And then you find like-minded people that are not saying, well, I'll tell you what, I'll pull out my gun and come to my door. Instead, you say, you're going to have to arrest me. You're going to have to take me to jail because you're violating the Constitution. And I've talked to all the neighbors on the streets, and none of us are going to give up our guns. And you'll have to put all of us in jail, Sheriff. I guarantee you, if you go the way of MLK, Gandhi, and Jesus, you win. I guarantee you. If you go the way of the marches and the flag waving and everything else, you will become a laughingstock again, because that's what the media will do to you. And if you go violent, we'll lose the country.